Hello and welcome. General Games. I'm Marcus in the booth here with Graham.
And this is Friday Night Legacy
It is.
for Friday Night Magic. We're very excited. We've got 4 rounds of Legacy coming up.
Playing with the old cards, and it should be a lot of fun if you have seen any of our previous Friday Night Legacies. There's been some interesting decks.
Speaking of which, we've decided to start off on a couple of the interesting decks.
So we got Gene Holland playing the infamous Green Machine.
The Gene Machine even.
And Stephen on his fabled Team Australia.
So Team Australia is something that Stephen did, kind of naming it after the Team America and the Canadian Threshold, kind of taking their own takes on the deck.
Yep.
And this is what he's done to Grixis Delver. He's cut the Gomag Angler and has opted instead for the 2-mana 5/5 flyer, which is a Tombstalker with a hidden delve cost attached to it. So it's got evasion and it can get in quite a lot of damage.
Yep.
On Gene's side, we've got the, as we said, the Gene Machine.
Yes.
What this deck is kind of a cross between Nick Fit and Night Tribal.
Yeah.
And it's got a few little other combos fit in there as well.
It's a bunch of cards that do, on the surface, look like a bunch of random cards thrown in a deck, but there's actually some pretty sweet synergies going on.
That's right, and there's even some instant win kind of things going on as well.
There's a couple of locks and an onboard win and a few other things. It's a really cool deck. We will be, or at least I know I will be checking the wording, the Oracle on some cards. So we're opening up with, I'm not quite sure who was on the play, but Stephen. So Gene was on the play. We saw some land. Stephen immediately wastelanding his opponent's Underground Sea.
And he's also holding up a Stifle for whichever one of those fetch land goes off first there. So that's definitely slowing down Gene's side of the board, at least until he tries to get something off like a Veteran Explorer.
Yep.
You can see on Gene's hand that he's got Harkon in there as well, which is a 1/1 Knight. It can actually only be cast from his graveyard though, so we can't actually do anything with it at the moment.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of ways of getting it there, which include a Collective Brutality using some of the additional methods.
He can Cabal Therapy himself.
And he can Cabal Therapy himself as well. That's right.
As you mentioned there, Stephen, immediately firing off the Stifle there on the fetch.
That's right, and he's got a double Volcanic in hand and play, and he's got the Tombstalker we were talking about earlier in hand. So at the moment he's a long way away from casting that, but he is holding up a counterspell in his hand as well. So wouldn't be surprised to see that on one of the plays which is coming up. Gene fetching again.
So Gene not running out of land. He's been wasteland and stifled, and still going, which is quite lucky, I guess. I think the game could have been a lot if he had
faster.
Yeah, it could have been a lot quicker had he had a few less land. Stevens looks like he's sitting on. He's got a Pierce there, a Force of Will,
a counterspell, whiteboarded.
Counterspell.
So it's a lot of counter magic, but no real threats at the moment.
Yeah.
So he's just sitting back and letting Gene be the aggressor for what it's worth. And there's a Brainstorm in response to the fetch, so we'll see what happens there.
He's just taking the opportunity here to do it, or is he actually looking for something?
Look, he might be trying to get value out of the Stifle again, but he has no lands in hand at that point when he cast it. He did just draw 2, but I think he's just digging for something to be able to do, because Delver's very much the aggressive deck and wants to be on the front foot, and he's just not really doing that at the moment.
No board presence here at the moment. I think looks like he put 2 lands back on top.
Okay.
With a fetch, kept a fetch.
So there was a fetch land and a wasteland that I saw. I don't think he had a third land, but we'll just see what
he has a fetch in
here.
hand, so I imagine the fetch is going to be at least putting away one of those cards that are on top of his deck.
Yeah, so Gene plays out a third land and plays out a True Name Nemesis. So
there's a card, we know what it does. So I imagine that the named player was Stephen.
Yes, and that's going to immediately hit a Force of Will.
Yep.
Lots of creatures in Gene's deck, so the Spell Pierce doesn't do as much as it would be doing otherwise. And next turn, Stephen can once again go back to holding up that counter spell.
That's a good target to hit with your Force of Will. It's a threat. It's something that I don't imagine Stephen has too many main board ways of dealing with. No point letting him hit the table there. Stephen's still on the land disruption plan, trying to just at least slow Gene down, so he's got some time to find some threats.
As a the Nick Fit deck, essentially, because he is running the Veteran Explorer, Cabal Therapy, and
the other one he's running there.
And doesn't look like he is actually playing the Phyrexian Tower, but he's...
he's not playing the tower, okay.
No, he is playing, as I said, the Veteran Explorers.
Yep.
Gene is very aggressively fetching the non-basics in his deck, and that means that if the Veteran Explorers do come up, it means that he can just immediately go for those basics and not get essentially put off them by having them used earlier in the game.
Yeah, of course. So there's another big part of this deck, the immediately countered there. The birthing pod gives some pretty good recursion and some really sweet interactions with Harkon and some of that, just the bouncing between your knights and so on.
And the fact that the knights come back from the graveyard means that you're getting value every single time you use it if he does get the cards back into your graveyard. But once again, we're just slowly moving through the paces, and Stephen finally sees some kind of threat because he just picked up a tree named Nemesis. He's going to shuffle away his Tombstalker, and we'll probably see that come down in the next couple of turns.
Yeah. Is he likely to tap out for that, or is
that's definitely something that's worth just slamming it down on the table, because it's very hard to interact with. I don't think a lot of people do have main deck outs to that. And Gene puts down a Bloodchief Ascension. So this card has, and there is a true name answer. If an opponent lost 2 or more life during a turn, you get to put a counter on it. If there's 3 or more counters whenever an opponent discards a card, they lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. So there's a later combo that we get with Zer's Weirding, which means that essentially he just gets to do that infinitely.
So you pay 2 life, your opponent discards the card, and then you get the 2 life back. Basically, it's an onboard lock. Your opponent can't draw new cards, essentially.
That's right, and Stephen's just checking to see exactly what it is that Bloodchief Ascension is doing. So the word from the table was that he tried very hard to not have to read the card, and then eventually yielded to the fact that he really needed to read the card. It's a little bit tricky working out when it triggers and when it doesn't. And so he just goes and elects not to shuffle after the Brainstorm, and instead just picks up the Tombstalker again and lays it down on the table. So this is going to get blocked the next couple of turns by the spirit that Gene's got there. So he's done the right thing with that Lingering Souls he's got there, but there's a lot of pressure coming down from Stephen's side of the table, so Gene needs to somehow stabilize in the next couple of turns. Yeah, the true name Nemesis definitely presenting not a particularly fast clock, but definitely putting Gene on a clock. So Gene's going to swords the Tombstalker. So Stephen gaining 5 and losing that 2-turn clock that he would have otherwise had, but he's still got the... Actually, just Force Wills it. Force Wills it. Just Force Will exiling Ponder there. Okay. Feels like he needs to keep that in play, And so we get an extra couple of spirits in this case. Yeah, so Gene just flashing back the Lingering Souls there. Interesting that Stephen chose to Force of Will that, feeling that he really needs the Tombstalker in play, I guess. Well, at the same time, it's also, to some extent, it's doing double duty. If he does leave it back, then that Gene can't attack for the next couple of turns, and he's not getting those triggers on the Bloodchief Ascension at the same time. Yeah, so he's got a couple turns, quite a few turns before the he's going to be able to get through all the spirits, but got to start somehow. That's right, and it looks like it's just the 1 Lingering Soul in the deck. So is that I think that's a Dismember that Stephen just picked up there? Let's either Dismember or I don't know. I think it was a Dismember. Might have been might have been a Toxic. Might have been Toxic Deluge. I don't think he's got that in the main deck. It's is obviously still a Delver base, or definitely one. Yeah, well, it wouldn't make much sense having it in the main. But he definitely, I think it was one of the others. So probably didn't quite see it properly, but I believe it was a. So that there is a Wiltleaf Liege. So that is a 4/4/4/1 and 3 hybrid green or white mana. It gives white creatures +1/+1. It gives green creatures +1/+1. And if someone makes you discard it, I believe it has to be an opponent's effect, then you actually get to put it into play instead. So the nasty surprise if you're not expecting it, and that hits to Dismember. Stephen's very careful to tap the 2 black mana when he's doing that to make sure that he's not accidentally triggering the Bloodchief Ascension as well. Yes. Yeah, so Stephen just
basically, I don't know. Like, is he? What's he hoping for here? Is he hoping to try and draw into a couple more counter spells just to make sure that nothing Gene plays can really catch him off guard, or is he trying to?
He's fine to just ride the board from where it stands, but he probably also wants to make sure that he's got some way to interact with whatever Gene's doing on his side as well, because there is the option of just hitting something that he may not necessarily expect.
Not be able to answer necessarily immediately. So yeah, still two spirits in play. It's at least 2 more turns of blocking the Tombstalker there.
That's right, but in 2 more turns he'll be dead to the True Name. I don't believe that he has a main deck outside of that either.
To the True Name?
No, he is holding an Angel in his hand, which not 100% certain what that is. He's got a Veteran Explorer and an Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, I actually think that I think you're right here. I think maybe the True Name is just enough to take it in the next 2 turns. I don't believe Gene has anything to...
Yeah, so he attacks him with 1 and leaves back the other one for the Tombstalker.
So there's the Veteran Explorer coming in.
Yeah, and doesn't really have a lot of ways to interact there because it's not going to interact with either of Stephen's pods. Not sure what Stephen actually has. He may have a... Force of Will if he's playing out that 5th land and is just holding up the Heartcaster.
What did he use the Dismember on?
He used it on the Whitleaf Leash.
Oh, so just on the leash, okay. Yep, just doesn't want any potentially potential tricks coming out.
Exactly. And we see a Baleful Strix.
Baleful Strix draws a card off the trigger. Don't think it's going to matter though, because I don't believe there's anything he could be drawing here that answers the onboard next turn kill.
I don't think there is any life gain that he's got in there either.
No.
And Gene is packing it up there.
Yep. So we'll be going aboard. Game 1 there going to Stephen.
And True Name just getting in there and Delver doing what it does with Heavy Mana Denial plan.
Timely counterspell there on the Gene's True Name, and then Stephen stuck around and demonstrated why it's played. We might be able to actually have a quick look in on so we do have a second game in play at the moment, but they also just concluded their game 1, so it's sideboards all around.
That's right. So I just saw Stephen bringing in some Thought Seizers.
Yep.
And I'm not sure, but I think I saw Snapcaster Mages, but that seems a little bit weird to be having in your sideboard, but it does make sense to an extent in that it would just lead to a more grindy game and letting you play the long game where the deck wouldn't otherwise have that staying power.
It's interesting. I do believe he's just pulled out at least 3 of his Force of Wills.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So Force of Will is a card that is inherently bad.
Yep.
It's something that you want if you're facing maybe a combo deck, for example.
Yep.
And you need to be able to interact on turn 1 on turn 2, even if you're tapped out. But you don't want to be using it against the longer grinding matchup because it's just pure card disadvantage when you're using it to pitch a card.
Yeah, sure.
You're getting rid of one of the better cards in your deck by doing so. And if you're casting a 5-mana kind of spell the hard way, then that's probably not something the Delver deck wants to be doing either.
Sure, definitely.
So outside of the combo matchups, it's not that uncommon to see it come out, and definitely against
taking out the Dazes there, being on the draw.
That's right.
Not so great.
And they'll probably come back in when he's on the play again.
Yep. I think I've only seen one of the 2 cards that Gene's put aside so far. One was definitely one of the Ascensions. I'm not sure what the other card was. Looks like didn't see what that was either. He had the Baleful Strix at the front, but I don't believe he would have pulled the Baleful Strix out. That's a Veteran Explorer.
It's interesting that he'd be taking those out since Stephen doesn't run any basic lands, as is traditional for the Delver deck.
Yeah, it seems quite one-sided.
He takes out Zer's Weirding as well, so you can just have a quick look there. He's actually taken out the combo, so there is 2 Zer's Weirding and 2 Bloodchief Ascension are just coming out, and so he's just
removed that combo. Yeah,
that's right, and he's just going to be playing the grindy game instead. And we've got 2 Swords to Plowshares, a Pernicious Steed, and some Abrupt Decays coming in. Yeah. So Gene's playing hard removal and just grindy creatures.
Yeah, so both players looking like they're ready to settle in for the longer game too.
Yeah, a little bit of a transformation on both sides, but we'll see how that goes. Stephen just having a last look through the sideboard just in case he's missed anything.
Yeah, just double checking. Oh, it looks like I don't see what that was, but he added another card.
And same
Yeah,
on the other
both
side.
decks here, very interesting sideboard decisions, given that Gene, sideboarding against Gene's deck in general would be quite a rough
A challenge
ask.
to something you haven't
Yeah.
seen before.
Yeah, exactly. And likewise, Gene's deck very, very inherently a little clunky. I think lots of pieces that all serve very particular roles, none of which are sort of
It's
shared.
got a lot of colours in it, so it's 4 colours, even boasting an Atraxa in the middle of it,
Yeah.
and it's trying to do that with a mixture of basic lands off the Veteran Explorers
Yeah.
and the non-basics just
Yeah, there's a
in
lot
the
of
regular fetch
yeah.
phase. So it's going in a lot of different directions at once.
yeah, and a lot of the cards do, like I said, do very particular roles that aren't sort of shared by any other card in the deck. It's like it kind of you play this card because it does this thing, and there's no other card that can kind of do anything similar, which makes cutting any kind of card out of its deck, that style of deck, quite difficult, because inherently if you remove one card, you need to remove anything else that it might be attached to, or
Absolutely.
hence the removing the entire Zer's Weeding and the Bloodline.
Yeah, so during the last game, we did discuss the combo. The other angle that Gene's deck attacks on is that it's essentially a Knight Tribal deck.
Yes.
So it's got the card Harkon, which
Yeah.
is a 1/black knight, which can only be played from your graveyard. If it ever dies, he loses some life. But it also means that other knights can be played from your graveyard as well. And he's got 4 or 5 different knights floating around in his deck, which he can just recur if he's got that Harkon in play. And it means that it's a lot of it's quite difficult to interact with his deck if he does get an engine like that going. I'm not sure if Stephen would bring in Graveyard Hate against that. It depends on mainly if he knows what the deck is doing.
I don't believe preemptively you do.
And he hadn't seen that game plan in game 1 either,
Yeah.
so it's not necessarily something you'd be expecting if you don't know about it. But Stephen did see it on camera last.
It is quite clunky. I mean, trying to get that going, I mean, you've got to get Harkon into the bin. You've got to get Harkon out of the bin back into play, and then you've then got to be able to, like, do things with the other cards that you're constantly recasting. So it does require a few other cards to really get somewhat of an, as you say, an engine going. But if you could get to that point, then you're in a pretty good spot. I mean, every turn you've got a knight coming back. Every turn, if you can get, like, we did see in previous matches, we've seen Gene play actually a couple of weeks ago in a previous Legacy event. He ended up getting that combo going with a birthing pod in play.
Definitely.
And, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be.
It's pretty good.
So, Gene starting off with one of the more... Oh, no, he's not. So there was a Deathrite Charm in his hand, but Gene has gone for a blind name. I don't know what he named.
Yeah, interesting to see what he named.
But it doesn't look like anything is going immediately to the graveyard, so I'm going to say he didn't hit.
So naming Force of Will.
Which obviously we know now that Stephen has brought it up, but it's something that obviously you don't want to be seeing.
Yeah.
And just having the knowledge of that daze is fantastic because it means that he can play around it.
Yep.
But at the same time, if I was in Stephen's shoes, knowing that my opponent was doing that, I would just get rid of the daze anyway, shuffle away with the brainstorm and have my opponent live in fear.
Yeah, at least play around it. Always be essentially it's effectively my forcing your opponent to pay 1 more for everything that they cast.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Gene, the interesting tension there. I mean, Stephen feeling that the Force of Will is not great in the matchup. Gene obviously feeling that the Force of Will was an issue for him game 1, and immediately just straight up blind naming that. So it's interesting there that both players maybe analyze that card differently in the matchup.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's still something to be scared of if it is in the deck. It's just that it isn't in this case.
Yeah.
And we'll just see what Gene does. As I said, I believe that the death rate, so that should be coming down, but...
Got a Swords there, ready to go for the... Not even going to give him a chance to flip, just immediately going to Swords there.
Yeah, and makes that decision. Stephen goes to 21, and we continue on our way.
Yeah, it doesn't have to worry about playing around the days next turn if he wants to play something else. Knows he can safely crack. Well, no, there's one unknown. Obviously, no, Stephen's tapped out though, so it doesn't matter. So he can safely crack again, having been hit by the Stifle game 1.
And we'll see if he tries to just get Stephen off that daze by running something into it. Because it's quite aggressive to fetch there if you're not. And so he plays up the death rate straight into the daze.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, Gene, good enough player to know that he was doing that. Like, he's not doing that by mistake. That's a conscious decision to slow Stephen down, force him to bounce the land.
Definitely.
Yep. There's a Deathrite Shaman. So, interesting. So, if you're Gene, are you more worried about the Deathrite Shaman or are you more worried about the Flip Delver?
I think I'm more worried about the Deathrite Shaman just because he's boarded in all the removal to deal with the Deathrite Shaman. So this is Cortazar. It's a 1/3 for 3. When it comes into play, you look at the top 3 cards of your library. You can put one of them into your hand and you put the rest of them on the bottom of your library in any order. And if you have not paid white mana to pay its mana cost, then it gets sacrificed. So if you've got the Harkon engine online, and he did this against me a couple of weeks ago, you just get to recur it if you don't pay white mana until you just to dig through your library.
Yeah, so just before we play that, as I was asking, so it's interesting because he obviously knew about both the Delver and the Deathrite, and he chose to swords the Delver, not the Deathrite. I mean, I feel in Gene's position that the Deathrite's probably more of a threat.
I don't think that's possible because he's got a Plains in place, so he has to have paid white. He's got a Plains.
But could he not have just paid black instead? It's a
basic land.
Oh, it's got a basic land. Yeah, so we'll just get our table judge there to get on top of that because white was definitely played to play that. So that was the
Cortazar in his graveyard.
Yeah, so the Cortazar could not have been sacrificed because white was played because obviously there's a basic land in play. So it must still be in play. We'll just get that fixed up real quick. Yes, I would have missed it. It is
that means that it's not going to disappear to the Deathrite Shaman either. Oh, actually, there was a Cabal Therapy. That's better. Yep. Okay, I missed that.
Oh, so we missed the Cabal Therapy sacrifice. Apologies. Yep. Yeah, just trying to discuss and make sure that our opponents, they're our opponents. Now make sure that our players abide by the rules.
Yep. So Stephen has played a Thought-Knot Seize since then. He's taken a Pernicious Deed and played out a second Delver.
Yep.
In hand, Gene has a Singleton Knight of Valor, which is a green and white 2/2, and it's got Vigilance and tap to add green mana.
What was named by the second Cabal Therapy there, I wonder? The Cabal Therapy flashback.
Let's have a look. The Tombstalker's disappeared.
Okay, so it would have been Tombstalker. Okay. Stephen obviously hitting off the top there. At one of his 2 previous draws, he hit the second flying insect dude. That one, the second Delver. So that's another. So that's what is it? Something of Valoran. So Steward of Valoran. It is a 2/2 knight, vigilant, and you can tap it to add green to your mana pool.
So Stephen gets his Delver online, attacks him for 3.
Yeah, so the Delver's up in the air now. So Gene needs to find an answer to that. The Pernicious Deed gone.
To the Thought Seeds earlier.
Yeah, so the Thought Seed would have been an okay answer.
And Gene fetching. So he's very low on cards here.
Yeah.
Once again, Stephen's managed to stabilize, so he just wants to sit there and if he can counter anything which is going to be too threatening, but for the most part, he doesn't really care about the other side of the board.
Stephen definitely demonstrating what the Delver style decks want to do. The tempo, kind of keep pressure on the board, pressure on your hand, counter a couple spells, and just push and never quite let your opponent settle into a position in the game where they're comfortable.
And he's holding up a lovely Beta Lightning Bolt and a Brainstorm. So
yeah, so most things that Gene could potentially play here, the Lightning Bolt is an answer to any potential shenanigans with creatures. There's Bloodchief's Ascension, so he didn't take them all out.
No,
interesting. So yeah, so Stephen obviously representing the Salt Mine.
Which is a legacy podcast,
yes.
Which is based here in Melbourne, along with the players Sean Brown and from New Zealand, Matt Vaughan. And we try and do it monthly, but not every time. They just have a good old chat about legacy,
the state
and
of legacy,
what's going on.
Cards, events, what they've done. So they do actually, the Salt Mine players do like to, they have their own mats, their own Salt Mine branded mats, which Unfortunately, could not be used on stream, on camera, because it does mess with our cameras. But yeah, so we'll do the right thing by Stephen, and just because he does help us out here a lot with commentary.
Absolutely, and Gene's sitting there on 2 land in hand, so he can't be feeling the best at the moment.
He's in a rough spot. The Delver has him on a...
he's dead this turn to Delver. Oh, no, he's already used the bolt, sorry.
Yeah.
So Delver hits in.
That's a 2/10
got 2 brainstorms, and he's just going to sit there and Death Ride him to death.
Yep. So 2 activations of Death Rite left in Gene.
So Stephen brainstorms, maybe looking to find a final lightning bolt, which he finds a Tombstalk instead.
Well, he's still in a good spot here. No real pressure. Gene not doing a lot of much, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need for him to play any of those cards and just put the land back to get rid of them for the moment.
Yeah.
We'll see if he does end up paying out the Tombstalker, though.
Yeah, a bit of a shame there coming at it from Gene. Gene's deck not really demonstrating really what it can do.
And to some extent, it's just demonstrating the strengths of what Delver can do against an unprepared deck.
Yeah, definitely. The pressure combined with it's just that tempo element, that ability to keep pressure on, but never, and just keep your opponent off balance. Very, very strong. Look, I don't think there's a huge amount left to be said, really, of Gene's. That is a land in Gene's hand, is it not?
That is a basic swamp, yes.
So I don't... Actually, I think there's literally nothing Gene can do here to not be dead.
Yep, so he draws a Veteran Explorer, which is not going to have any impact on this particular board state. So
Stephen's line is shock you for 2, take my turn, shock you for 2.
That's right.
Drain you for 2, rather.
And that's the end of that.
That is a 2-0 to Stephen.
Gives out the handshake.
Against Gene. So that's round 1. I think we do still have a match taking place on table 2.
So this is Lucas GM versus Stephen Tang.
Yeah, we'll jump across in a second once we get the live totals and stuff updated. It's Miracles versus...
It's New Miracles versus Ad Nauseam Tendrils. So Lucas is very proficient with the deck, been playing it a long time. High places in a couple of the European GPs even.
Okay.
Stephen is a long-time Miracles player in Melbourne and has gone from the top to the topless Miracles.
Yeah, we will jump across momentarily once we get a chance. But yeah, look, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more out of Gene's deck there, but unfortunately not to be. So this is our game 2.
That's right. So Lucas GM, as I said on Ant, he's on 15 live. Quite a big graveyard going on there.
Yeah.
And Stephen Tang is obviously on Miracles. So we can see Snapcaster Known in hand, Vendilion Click on board. And 3 cards in hand, and Lucas looks like he's playing with about 4 cards there. So just a slow beat down with the Vendilion Click, and Lucas is obviously going to be wanting to get to a critical mass so that he can storm off.
Yeah. So this is a very interesting matchup. It's a bit of a classic of the Legacy format. I mean, Miracle's not as good as...
Yeah, so we're going to cast a duress and we'll have a look at exactly what's going on. And the answer is not a lot.
Not a lot.
So we see a Jace the Mind Sculptor disappear from Stephen's hand. He's left with 3 land and a Snapcaster. There doesn't seem to be a lot going on there, but there is a black card.
Does he have a... Yeah, so it's Lucas obliged to go off now, basically. He is...
Not necessarily, but I think there's a surgical extraction in Stephen's graveyard. I'm not 100% certain.
I was just looking if there's any 1 cost there for the Snapcaster flashback.
So there's a brainstorm further down, and there is, I believe, a surgical extraction.
Yeah, the surgical is going to make it real hard for Lucas here, if not impossible.
It's a fine card. It just means that you can't do the LED into Past in Flame signs because that means that your cards can disappear, so you need to make sure if you're doing anything that you're doing it immediately. He's got the Tendrils in hand as well, which is not where he wants to be at the moment. So it's Land Cabal Ritual Tendrils, I believe. So
yeah, I mean, unless he has
that's the 3rd land. So Dark Petition.
Unless he has a way to deal with the onboard V-Click attacking him next turn, you feel, is there a way he can survive this turn and get back to his turn next turn without dying?
So he's got the mini Tendrils option, but which is going to be Cabal Ritual into his Dark Petition, which leaves him with 3 mana. Probably find another ritual. So he can Storm for 4, gain 8 life, lose the Tendrils to Surgical Extraction, and I don't know whether or not he's gone with the option of putting in Empty the Warrens.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it depends on what's in post board.
About just having a good long think about what the best line is, and here we go. So starts on the Cabal Ritual. That's adding 5 mana because he has a Threshold, and it means that he has, which means he's got 7 or more cards in his graveyard. Cast Dark Petition with Spell Mastery, which means he's got 2 or more instants or sorceries. That means he gets to add 3 black mana after this. So he's going to end this with 3 black mana after he's finished casting it. And this is his 3rd spell for turn, and I believe he's got the Tendrils in hand.
So what are you getting off? The Dark Petition?
That's the interesting question.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I believe it's Tendrils in hand, which means he can't crack an LED without losing the Tendrils to the Surgical.
Okay.
So he has to go for either another Ritual and Tendrils, or we'll have a look at what he's got.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously.
So he's considering Brainstorm. He's just looked at that.
Yeah. Okay.
Past in Flames, which he can get red mana off the fetch land.
Yeah, Past in Flames, as you said, very difficult line. If as you say, there is can't quite see it, but if there is a Surgical Extraction in the bin. Oh, yep, there it is. No, pointed out to me. Yep, right there, just above the Force of Wills. So Lucas having a long think.
Trying to see the most cards that he possibly can at the moment. While still playing around that Snapcaster Surgical line. If he can get off a Past Inflamed, it means he's got access to the Cabal Therapy out of his bin.
Yes.
The problem being,
can he do some tricky sequencing there to get rid of the Snapcaster before there's a good target for Steven to hit?
So he's got 3 black mana. He's got a Scalding Tarn. So if he gets red mana to cast the Past in Flames, then he's got he doesn't have any mana left over. Afterwards, and I think he has just chosen the Past in Flames there, which means he cracks his LED, casts the Cabal Therapy to get something out of hand. We'll see what it is. And then he would have to...
Man, it's a puzzle.
It is definitely a puzzle. I believe what's happening is he's going to have a second line in hand. He's going to have an Empty the Warrens. So if his tutor gets taken, then if the Tendril gets taken, then he goes and uses other tutors. If it doesn't, then he... Anyway, we'll see what Lucas does. So Lucas casts Past in Flames off a flashback from an LED, leaving 1 black mana up, and it's got green mana as well.
So there's the
Snapcaster gets Cage, he takes the Tendrils. No, he takes the Cabal Ritual, which is very clever. So at the moment, what he's trying to do is bottleneck Lucas on mana so that he can't get back up there again. We don't have any other rituals in the graveyard.
So, there's a heads up play. Don't even worry about anything else. Just don't give him an option to actually get the mana he needs to go beyond what he currently has.
That's right. And the Past in Flames is now flashback, so he casts Ponder.
Yeah, the
Storm is 7.
Clever take.
And we're just looking for a Dark Ritual, which was that the one on top? It wasn't. Nope, we're shuffling. So I think we're looking for an LED at the moment. So
that might be our only out, right?
So has to find an LED, play and crack it, and then cast the Tendrils out of the graveyard. And that's not it, so...
Hits the Ad Nauseam instead.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go to game 3 of this second feature match.
So for the main part, Steven's deck... obviously, we're going to third game, so they're not going to be boarding too much, but Steven's deck isn't the best setup in the first game, but in the second and third games, you get cards like Aether Spawn Canonist along with Flusterstorm, And depending on the build, sometimes Red Blast, but I know that Steven is just playing a straight blue-white build.
Does the Ant deck gain much post-board against a deck that's going to gain a lot against it?
Ant always loses in the second and third game. Its best setup is when it's in game one.
Sure.
And then second and third games, you get hate cards to deal with your opponent's hate cards. So he's going to be running things like Abrupt Decay, Echoing Truth.
So you're more proactively boarding against cards that you expect to see.
That's right. And we've been seeing a Braid Floor showing up in a couple of decks recently, but it is once again something where it tends towards the longer games.
So just out of curiosity, is Steven running? Is Steven using outer sleeves on those sleeves there? Are they some form of collectible?
It looks like there are some outer sleeves there as well.
Yeah, that's a very thick 60 cards.
Yeah, well, Steven has just upgraded to foreign black border jewels in his deck, so needs to make sure he's protecting those, obviously. Yep. And he's got a couple of altars floating around there. His Brainstorm have Sensei's Divining Top altered onto them because you can never let the past go.
You can't let it go. Oh, it was good. No, I do believe he's running some extra thick cards there. Those I imagine that those sleeves are worth some amount of money on the sleeve market. Something I will never understand. But
I was unaware there was a sleeve market.
So this newsflash for you: you can pay a lot of money for individual sleeves. There is an entire trading. You can trade sleeves. It's
well, I know what I am doing when I get home.
Gonna go price up some sleeves. Yeah, it's quite the. Apparently, there's some real expensive sets. Anyway, so Lucas on the play, I do imagine. Looks like he mulliganed.
Yeah, so there was a no-lander on the start. So Scry's to the bottom and then get Probe to see a new hand. We see Stephen Tang's hand, which is Predict, Snapcaster Mage, Force of Will, Counterspell, Land.
Yep.
So no real interaction to start off with. So nothing until second turn except for the Force. So a early duress could be quite damaging to what's going on here.
Yep. So, does he have the immediate hand interaction? He kind of needs a way to get rid of the Force of Will to be completely safe. But I don't know exactly what he has in hand here.
Yeah, it looks like there's about 4 land there, so quite heavy in that regard.
Yeah, you got a playable 6. You're not going to go to 5 and try and hope for something better. That's a
alternate art Preordain.
Oh, it's Preordain. Okay. Oh, what's Jewel?
This is.
It's cool. It's nice. It looks cool.
So this is a dual deck Preordain.
Yep.
And so there is a duress in hand and LED, and I think that was a Tendrils, which is once again not a card you really want to see early on.
Yeah, not definitely don't want it in the hand. So Stephen playing open. Obviously, this is casual. This is very relaxed rules at the moment. This is just an FNM. It's legacy, but he's going to throws his
Pokeball down on the table. Releases some kind of Pokemon. In this case, the one which looks at the top 3 cards of your library.
Keeps them in the exact same order. That look like.
Don't know why you even bother casting it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just,
You could just cast his Vaccine Probe.
Yeah, it's same effect.
So there's a Dark Ritual, Lotus Petal, Brainstorm. Still a few too many lands, so we're just looking for a tutor at the moment on Lucas's side. And once we've got
so
that,
there's the duress. Now, Stephen chooses... Yeah, it doesn't even matter. Chooses to not counter it because he has another Force of Will.
Yeah, so this gives you a little bit more information about the choice that happened when he pondered.
Yep.
He's got 2 Predicts in hand, so we're going to be using Predict just to draw those extra 2 cards.
Yep.
And start again at the beginning of the next turn. And the Counterspell did go away there, so quite difficult for Lucas to go off just because there's a lot of protection floating around on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
But if played right, it can just up his Storm count as well.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. The correctly hitting the Force... with the duress, he did hit the Counterspell given that the one Force of Will will have to probably pitch the other Force of Will.
No, I would go for one of the other blue cards. So
You
the
reckon?
Predict will go away first. You want to have 2 forces rather than one against a deck like this.
Yeah, maybe I was just thinking about it a bit more. Maybe he should have hit the Force of Will because the counterspell in the bin is a target for the Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, that's
as well.
true.
Maybe hitting the Force of Will there is actually just better. Not quite sure. I mean, obviously Lucas could probably shed some light on that for us if we were to ask him, but nonetheless chooses to take the counterspell. Time might become a factor here. 10 minutes left in the round.
So definitely an option. Miracles is one of the slower decks, but
well, game 2 definitely went the distance. So game 3 here could be interesting. Now, Stephen, is he playing? So there's a few variations, obviously, on the Miracles deck. Obviously, now it's being topless, but is he playing the Monastery Mentor style deck, or is he playing more of a pure control grind you out
last time
deck?
I checked, he was playing pure controls, no Monastery Mentor, and Entreat the Angel as a win condition.
Okay, so just like the one or two of the entreats.
A lot of the time here is just going to be the Snapcaster Mage and the Vendilion Click, which is the actual win condition. So he casts Predict, shows that he knows that the top card of his library is a Tundra, and draws some extra cards.
Yep.
So interesting enough, after I just earlier said that Stephen did not have red in his deck, he is playing with 2 Volcanic Islands on the board.
Yeah.
So
so there was a slight mistake there. Stephen looked at an extra card that he shouldn't have seen. Or 2 cards he shouldn't have seen. But look, it's casual. I imagine that they get shuffled and we continue on.
That's pretty much what I believe would happen here, but we'll see. The judges just coming over to make a call.
Yeah. So he looked at one card more than he should have seen, which is just going to get shuffled away, and be more careful. Basically, is the ruling. Not a big deal. Called it on himself as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
he's going to plays his fetch out.
3 new cards.
He's got a bunch more cards than he had previously. There's a Portent.
Yep, targeting himself this time.
Yep.
And he will most likely go for the Predict again on the end of turn.
Yeah,
using
just try and bury Lucas in cards.
Yep.
Not give him an opportunity to actually do anything because he just has a grip full of stuff.
Yep. So Carney, he's got 6 cards and 7 in Lucas's upkeep.
Yep.
And
so now, so we know what Stephen's doing. So what's Lucas looking for here?
So Lucas is just looking for enough ways to get past the Force of Will. He maybe wants to look like he's doing something to play into the Force of Will and try and convince Stephen to counter something. But I did just see a Cabal Therapy there, so if he can get that off, that does hit all the forces in Stephen's hand.
Yeah, that's probably getting... that's awkward. You probably Force of Will the Cabal Therapy though, right? Like
you do that, or if you've got a harder counter.
Well, unless you have a hard counter.
Instead.
There's an interesting point here though. From next turn onwards, Stephen's also going to have the option to Snapcast the counterspell, which means if Lucas isn't able to remove the Force of Wills from Stephen's hand this turn, it means that he's probably going to have to battle through 2 possible counterspells in the one turn, which would be quite difficult. There's our Stephen considering... No, not Steve. Sorry, this is...
It is Steve. Stephen and Lucas both that match heavy
finished.
Thoughts going on at the moment. And just trying to work out exactly what the plan is. So we go back to Stephen again.
Yep.
And we see the Mentor.
So the Mentor's off the board, obviously, right? Unless he's changed.
I'm not 100% certain because, as I said, last time I saw it was straight blue-white, but we do have Volcanics there now.
Would you have... Exactly, I was going to say, I feel he might have changed it because I don't imagine that's a card you bought in against an Ant deck.
Look, it's not the worst. It's something where once you land it, you can just have whatever the spells you would normally be playing, and getting value out of them. So it's
true.
Not the worst.
It is a clock. It is providing more of a clock versus the Ad Nauseam deck, which will... which will take as long as you give it to kill you. It'll generally speaking, in Storm decks, you want to basically stay in the game for as long as possible and then go off at the last possible moment. Giving yourself the greatest opportunity to win when you do go off. Yeah,
well, it's a little bit different to it's not a deck that you can consistently miracles in the deck, I should say, that you can consistently go off against on the first turn. So
Yes.
here we see the Cabal Therapy. We're probably naming Force of Will, so Stephen instead Force of Will
Force of Wills,
pitching the Predict.
Yep, holding on to the one
and
Force of Will in his hand.
I would not be surprised to see an extra discard effect coming down here.
Yeah, so Lucas would like one here. Honestly, he'd love a creature in hand to flash back the... he'd like some kind of creature in play here. It would be great for him to be able to flash back the Cabal Therapy.
And that Force of Will putting in a Mentor token.
Or just a second Cabal Therapy. Equally good. And that's going to get hard counted. Oh,
Okay.
this is rough.
So we can see that we've got Snapcaster, blue card. Well, Snapcaster with the blue card, Force of Will, and 2 extras.
Yep.
And we put that away
So,
and wait till next turn.
At the very least, he's made it, without knowing Stephen's 3 other cards, the Force of Will, with the known information, the Force of Will would have to either be hard cast, which is possible at this point, or it would be this, you'd be
Pitching the
exiling.
Snapcaster.
Yeah, you'd be pitching your Snapcaster.
But you would think there would be something left in the other
Yeah.
3 cards there.
Yeah, I do believe that is more than likely that there's going to be another blue card in amongst those 3.
So Stephen just doing some maths at the moment. He seems to be trying to work out whether or not he can
Just
just
kill him.
present lethal
Yeah, with
from the
Snapcaster
Mentor.
flashback.
So at the moment there's 4 damage on the board, and we would need to
Snapcaster
do
Ponder?
3 spells in order to
There's one.
get there to lethal.
Prowess triggers.
Yep.
So that puts it to 6 damage on board.
So it should be 4 damage for 2 from the Mentor and 2 from the 2 Mentor tokens, and then it's an extra 3 each time. So that goes up to 7 damage there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course. It's a Mentor's a 2/1, sorry.
So he casts Pyroblast, targeting his own Mentor, doing absolutely nothing,
Does
but
nothing.
adding 1 to prowess.
That is the argument as to, and then he's going to
Force
force
of
the will
Will his
target
own spell
his own
and
spell.
do it
and
again.
That'll do it. Well done. So, Stephen, yep, that's why you play a Mentor.
Once again, showing why you're playing the Pyroblast over the red Elemental Blast as well, because that
Yep.
card not really doing anything.
No, exactly. Good demonstration of actually that exact argument and that case for why you would play one versus the other. The
That's
ability
right.
to target something and have a spell cast, but not have an effect.
Absolutely.
Well, that was quite a long round 1.
That's right, and not much longer left for the next
Yeah,
round, about
so-
5 minutes or so.
Yeah, so obviously we'll be back for round 2.
Hope to see you then.
Yeah, stick with us.